Hi everyone, today I'm going to be working on the Exercism exercise. Exercism is a website for practicing your programming skills, and it has plenty of languages and different language tracks. For example, if I go here and I will type Clojure, this is what I'm interested in and I will be working on. And it has Clojure and Clojure script, which is like relatively new. And the exercise I've chosen for today will be tracks on tracks on tracks from the Clojure track. And yeah, we can read through, but before we begin, I can just give you a bit of introduction, which tools usually I use while working on this and what you could use too. And the first tool is called Clips. Here's like interactive REPL inside your browser. You don't need to, you can just type in and write your Clojure code here and execute it and see results over there. Let's say if we will do, I don't know, maybe like a rest on the list, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and you click option and return, and you will see execution over here. This is just a great tool when you don't want to set up your REPL locally. I just go here, can experiment and run my code and see how it goes. Another tool is Clojure Docs, which is community-powered documentation and examples for the Clojure programming language. And you can search for different core and not only like functions and see what it does in examples. I found it very useful and great. Another thing, just in case I have a small project in my VS Code based on, it is a Clojure Learning project, and you could also start REPL here by start the project REPL and connect. And you need to select Learning and Uberjar. And you could also execute different commands and like evaluate and execute the expressions here and see the same like rest with a list 1, 2, 3, 4, and we see result as a comment over here, not a comment but basically as an evaluation and also in the REPL. So I will keep it running just in case. And let's have a look at the exercise itself. So this is an easy exercise working on lists, and lists are collections basically, just in other languages. What we need to do here is we will be writing code to process a list of programming languages. And you have 6 tasks. We should have create a new list. Then we will add a new language to that list. Check the last language that was added, and remove languages from the list and count how many languages we have in the list. And at the end we need to put it all together like in a working program. For example, we need to create empty list, add 2 languages to that list, remove Lisp, add 2 more languages, and then return a total number of languages in our list. Okay. Let's start with the first task. And here to the left we have like a number of already predefined functions. This is a set of functions that we will need to use to actually accomplish this exercise. Let's start from the first task, and we need to create a new list. I'm just gonna collapse everything over here, and we have a function for that which is called new list, creates a list. Yeah, there are actually 2 ways to create a list in Clojure. You could use like single quote and the round brackets, and I can verify it here. This should return a new list when I call it. And yeah, you can see it being evaluated and returning a new list. And the second way, you could just use list function from the core library, I believe. And if I call new list, it will return me a list. The outcome would be the same. I think I will go just with this notation to not spend much time on it. Alright, we created a new list, tested it, and go into the second task. We need to add a new language to the list. So our function would look like this. The first argument is the language that we want to add, and the second one is the language list where we want to add this, and return will be a list. Okay, we have a function already, add language. We have language and language list passed to it, and for that I would probably use the function which is called conj. This is like the most efficient way to add something to a collection, and it just returns a new collection to you. So the first argument is collection itself, and then X would be an item which you add into this collection, and we could say conj collection which be lang list, and our language will be then the last argument. And we can test this function in Eclipse really quick. Let's say I want to add language which is JavaScript to my collection of languages over here, and yeah, you can see it's returning JavaScript over there. I want also maybe check the use case when we have a language inside, and let's see if it's working. Yep, looks like it. So we are good with this function and the step 2. Another one is check the language last added. So we need to return last added language from the list. Okay. And the function calls first language. There is a function which is called first, and we can use that, I think, to operate on the list, and we just can type first lang list, and let's test it over quick here. First language. And it is like receiving a list of languages that we have. And of course I need to call it wait, let's execute that. Okay, and it's returning a first language from a collection of languages. So it seems like it's doing what we want. The first task is to remove the language, the first language from the list. If we have like Common Lisp, Rocket and Scheme in the list, we want to only return Rocket and Scheme. And for that, I already showed you before, you could use a REST function from the Clojure. I think it's good enough. Lang list, all right. And another function we will be working on is the 5th task, and it says count the languages in the list. And for that, we have like a super handy function which is called count. From Clojure core, and it just returns a number of items in the collection. And this is just a perfect match for our languages collection. Count lang list. And we're going to the last task, which says put it all together. And we have a learning list function, which we will need to create empty list first, add 2 new programming languages to that list, remove Lisp from that list. So we are going to use almost all of these functions, which is, I think, new list. Then we will go to use 2 times add language with Clojure and Lisp accordingly. Then we will remove the first language from that collection, which would be like lastly added language. And we need to add 2 more. Okay, so it would be like remove and then add language, and then we will need to return number of languages that we have in this collection. And for that, I would suggest starting with thread last macro. So this would be a nice way in Clojure, like to write in a very functional way and call all our functions that we have. For example, let's start with a new list function. This will create us a new list. And then we will need to add languages. Add language, which would be a Clojure language. And so this is a thread last macro, and we have like thread first macro. What it does, it will grab an execution of this function and place it at the end of this expression after the closure. And as you can see, add language expects a language collection and expects a language that we want to add, and the language collection, language list as a last argument. And this is what it exactly does. The first outcome of this function would be implicit return of this list, and it will go just over here, and that will then write Clojure inside and return it. This is what basically our function does. And in the similar fashion, you can go and add another language, which would be Lisp in this case. And after that, what we need to do, we need to remove Lisp from that list. And for that, we have a function already defined above, which is called remove language. And it will take no arguments because it's just removing a first, lastly added language from the collection of languages. As you can see here, it will return everything except of a first. And next task is adding 2 more programming languages to the list. Let's use add language again, which would be Java, and another one, which would be JavaScript. And after that, we need to count all the languages, which I will call count languages function. And we will code without any arguments for now, because this is what thread last macro will do for us. It will put all the list as an argument here, and it will go inside here. We just will count how many languages do we have. I can briefly test this in the clips. Of course, we don't have this namespace, so I should get rid of it. And we have learning list. And let's call this function and see what it returns. And it returns exactly 3 to us. And if I'm going to modify and like add another language here, then like Go language, we will see that result would be different, of course, and it seems to be working well, and I'm just gonna hit run the test and let's see the evaluation. And all the tests are passed, which is great, and we completed this exercise and can submit it. See you in the next one. Thanks.